Well, happy Friday, everyone. My name is Heather Odendahl. I am the founder and CEO of W North. We are a global women's membership and conference supporting women mid career on a trajectory towards senior executive leadership. And I am so pleased to be coming live today to all of your LinkedIn screens to share a really important conversation. Today, we are going to be talking about behind the mask, breaking the stigma of mental health in senior leadership with Kari Lockhart from Deloitte. This is a really important conversation with International Women's Week. There are lots of great things to celebrate, but we also have an enormous opportunity to talk vulnerably about the challenges that we face as women in senior leadership. A little bit about Kari. So Kari is a BC Deloitte private leader, and her industry experience and ability to connect with people in the business community, client centricity, and focus on the power of storytelling has made Kari a recognized, trusted advisor. Kari focuses on elevating female entrepreneurs and aspiring leaders by lending her leadership platform and experience to drive conversations and actions around barriers, financial opportunities, and supporting leaders to find their leadership voice. Kari believes that when you give people a voice and enable them to thrive, you can fully contribute to your organization. Welcome to the W North stage, Kari. So pleased to have you here.
Thank you so much. And honestly, thank you so much for having me here. It's really a true honor.
And before we get into the conversation, we were just chatting about it. It was International Women's Day on Wednesday, International Women's Week of activity to celebrate women. Love to hear you share a little bit about what you got up to this week.
Sure, I would love to. It was definitely a pretty busy week, that's for sure. It started off Monday evening. I went to actually an inaugural event held and hosted by a group called 10 Strong Women, who are a group of 10 women in the technology industry. And it's not very common to have a lot of women within tech. And as they started to get to know each other and talk to each other, they formed this group really to start to create a community that was supportive of other women in tech. And this event in particular was held to raise money for One Girl Can, which is a charitable organization founded by the founder of AG Hair.
Yes.
Based in Vancouver too. So it's all these amazing women kind of coming together and supporting each other. So the event was really meant to be a kickoff, and they asked me to talk right at the very beginning to sort of share my story and sort of open up the conversation so that it was very vulnerable and authentic. So this was actually the first time I ever talked in person, in front of a group of people that I didn't know anyone. Well, maybe a handful of people in the room.
Yeah.
So it was pretty emotional pretty quickly. And, but honestly, I just felt so sort of just held and cared for. A lot of other people in the room kind of broke down, came up afterwards, gave me a hug. And then we had these table talks on some pretty important topics, and everyone was just so open and authentic and really offering help and assistance and advice. And it was a really beautiful, just coming together event. And we're just starting to do that again. So it was a lovely way to kick off the week. I
love that. No, I just love that those smaller circles as well, like that type of format where you can dive in and have, deeper conversations with a smaller group of people.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful way to connect. And we love One Girl Can too. We are a supporter. We have we just had a student graduate that we sponsored for 4.5 years through university, and we've just selected a new one, Nancy, who has already started her computer science degree. So love One Girl Can. I will tag them in the post here as well.
Amazing. That's fantastic. Yeah, and then Wednesday was a little bit of a flurry of events. We had a networking event held actually in our new office. So Deloitte Summit just officially launched 2 weeks ago. Fantastic space. People love it. People are coming to it. It's so great to have so many people around. We had a networking event, and then we had broadcast a live panel discussion across Canada. And it really, the topics kind of went all over the place, but it was really about how do you feel comfortable showing your true authentic self in the work environment. And they touched on well-being and mental health a little bit in that panel discussion too. Then lunchtime, there was a group of basically just friends of mine that we all got together and just celebrated each other and in just a really nice, lighthearted way with women at lunch, which was lovely. And then yesterday, I moderated a panel on 360 by Deloitte, which is our biannual virtual event where it sort of talks on all sorts of different thought leaderships and top of mind topics. And I hosted a panel on mental health, but mental health within the workplace and how we can actually have actionable insights. We've been talking about this issue, mental health in the workplace, quite a bit, and it was definitely heightened by the pandemic. And it's like, okay, this is great, but now what? What do we do about it? And there was some really just great insights and just honestly, just some really great tips on what people can do and then also what organizations can do.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. So it sounds like you made the most of the week. And what I would love to dive into with right now is in September 2022, you released an article on LinkedIn called Behind My Mask, a vulnerable insight of your burnout story. And the article went viral and captured the attention of a lot of people, especially in the world of leadership. I wanted you to have an opportunity to share a bit about what prompted you to write the article, and obviously the courage it took for you to be that vulnerable.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Basically, what it was is I came back to work and I'd been off for 9 months, and people were incredibly thoughtful and caring, like, how are you doing? But there was also like just questions like, oh, so I heard you were off for a while and are you okay? And you could tell they kind of wanted to know a bit more, but they didn't want to invade my privacy in essence, which I really appreciated. And of course, I told people that were close to me before I went on leave, during my leave, everything like that. But what a big part of what it was is I really didn't want any sympathy at all. What I wanted, and I think I had to get it out, because a huge part of my own struggle was always saying I was okay and that I was fine and that I could handle everything. And that was kind of the breaking point of when I went on my leave, is I literally could not function anymore and I was not okay. And so it was almost a step in my own healing to just say, put it out there that I wasn't okay. And no matter how, like, in essence, the mask looked, there was a lot going on behind the mask. And that's what it was about.
Definitely. So what are the things, so I will give you an opportunity to share a bit about, your journey and your experience with mental health. But I also this is an important conversation to talk about how you handled some of these tough conversations coming back as well. So we'll touch on a little bit. Sure. So, and your article, you covered off, and I'll bring them up, the masks that you wore. A mask to protect yourself, a mask of fun, energetic, a curious adventurer, a mask that I have it all under control, and a mask that I can handle anything that you throw at me.
Yeah.
And I loved those references because they're so many women can relate to that.
Mhm.
And, feel free to bring in some of the stories, some of the stories that you shared in that LinkedIn article. We will also link it in the post for those who want to dive in deeper. But what um, what did it take to really take off those masks? And was it one by one? Was it a realization that we talk a lot about saying no to things,
Mm.
and was it one small piece, or how did that kind of unfold?
Yeah, I would say it definitely it happened over time.
Hmm.
And it was more like I would describe it as cracks in the mask. Like
Yeah.
it was, I knew before going into before the pandemic, something just didn't feel right with, with my marriage. I wasn't very happy going home anymore. And I was just trying to hold it all together. And really I was controlling. And I didn't like becoming that person, but I felt like that's the only thing I could do. Then I had a change of roles within Deloitte, and all of a sudden I went from having this incredibly tight knit group of people, women, and we were shaking things up, and people were watching us. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, that's great, you've done that. Now go over here. And it was just like, but wait, these are my people. Um, so that happened, and that was just like all of a sudden work kind of wasn't quite as joyful as it used to be. And I would say that before, work was definitely a distraction
Yep.
um, for not being comfortable. And it's not like I wasn't happy in my home.
Hmm.
And so I distracted myself by work, and I really threw myself into that role. And then it was this shift of role, and it was like, whoa, what happened? And then obviously pandemic, you're stuck in this place that you're not comfortable in or not happy, and it all just started cracking. Like it was just
Hmm.
like I started the control. I couldn't control things anymore, and I was becoming really angry, but I couldn't show it. Like it was like, no, I got it together. It's fine. Because you're now this leader that people are looking to, and they're saying, how's she doing? And you're like, it's good. Like this is great. I can get my laundry done. And it's just like at the same time, you're literally crawling out of your skin.
Hmm.
And sometimes the hardest things that people would say to me is they would say things like, wow, you really look like you've got it all together. You have this amazing life. And I would like in behind, it would be like, I'd scoff and be like, oh my God, you have no idea. And I wouldn't want this life for my friends, my kids.
Hmm.
And then it just, my marriage had, as I said, had a many issues before that, and it was just it all kind of it was the straw that broke the camel's back. If we were all together in one space, and it was actually my husband that said one day in the middle of August, that was 2021, and he or 2020, sorry, and he just said, I can't do this anymore, and I'm looking to get a 2 bedroom, and I'm leaving. And it was just like this incredibly overwhelming sense of relief, but then like panic of like, what are we going to do? How are we going to protect the kids? Like, and then again, the control came in. Okay, I got this. We're gonna, this is how we're gonna make how we're gonna have the conversation with them. And this is what we're gonna do here. And like it was just, and and then I distracted myself. I
Yeah.
went and did a yoga teacher training certificate in the middle of lockdowns, and it was just like, just get me out of here, and just kept trying to bury it down. It was just like, it'll go away. I'll be fine. I just have to get used to this new situation. All those little whispers in the back of our heads, like just, I mean, they're just nonstop.
Yep.
Um, so I did that, and I threw myself into that.
Yep.
Work was not the distraction it used to be, so I had to find something else.
And we
And
also, I mean, just also during the pandemic, and even months and years after, is those moments of joy, those family gatherings, those friend gatherings, those things that we forget uplift you.
mhm,
We were all missing those things. And so um in addition to that, you were likely, as we all were, missing those moments of joy.
yeah,
And on top of everything you were going through,
yeah,
that was just, yeah, they all kind of accumulated together.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I describe it. It was just like this crack, and then there was another one, and then it was another one. And I think it was like, you want new analogies. I just kept trying to like paste it back on, and it was like, it's fine. And the kind of like happy, fun, energetic, passionate person, I was like, yeah, I got it. And then I was really passionate about yoga, and this is what I'm going to do. And, it was at this point in time, I had started therapy. I was working with a coach in another way. And I was, just through a lot of kind of like really engaging your circle of people around you that really truly care about you, is I started to really crack in front of them. I became incredibly vulnerable. I can't do this anymore. I don't know what I'm doing. And they're like, kept suggesting, should I take a break? Should I take time off? And it was like this tightness of my chest of like, I can't do that. Like, I'm going to let everybody down, and I can't do that. Like, the team's going to be disappointed. What are they going to do? Almost like in an anxious way, but it was also this tightness. And then from that point, it just kept, like, best way to describe it, just kept like this, and I couldn't hold it in.
Yeah.
And I had this incredible piece of advice from my coach of just create a playlist of sad songs, and just cry to it,
Right.
and just keep listening and keep crying and just let it out. And I started doing that, and then the crying didn't stop. And it was like 3 weeks every day, and it was pulling myself out of bed to like get through it. And I kind of go through the motions. I was canceling days at work. I just call my assistant and say, just cancel the day. I can't do this. And I just go back to bed. And it was a Sunday morning where it was, 3 weeks into this sort of like, why can't I stop crying? What's wrong with me? And I called one of my lead partners, and I just literally, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just so tired and so exhausted.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do anymore.
And how, I was going to say how, I mean, obviously it took a lot of courage to ask that question. And this is why it's so important. There's probably a lot of people that will watch this that are maybe at a breaking point or at a point where they need to ask this question. And so I will say, how did you ask the question? How did he take it? And what advice would you have for somebody who's in that position?
Yeah, I didn't ask the question.
Oh, okay.
I just said I had to stop. I said, I think I need to take like a couple weeks off. He actually suggested, because it was in the beginning of June, and he's like, why don't you take the summer off? The summer's kind of quiet for us. So he's like, let's tell people that you're going to take that time off. And if you decide to come back early, you decide to come back early. But he's like, if we say 3 months, people will leave you alone. Like, they'll find another way.
That's a
That
great
was
suggestion.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing that he suggested that.
Because if you'd gone with the 3 weeks, it would have just been like you were on holiday, and people would continue to email you. Things would still pile up. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the time I had an amazing assistant, and she just said, close your laptop and don't open it again. And like, delete all the Deloitte apps off your phone, just stop. And this is literally what I did.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would say that it probably took me 2 months to just, what I describe as just to breathe.
Yeah.
Just feel like that tightness was releasing. So I definitely needed that time. And I realized I had to stop distracting myself. So there were many days that I'd sit on the couch and just do nothing. And for a person that is definitely described as pretty energetic, that was incredibly hard. But realizing through therapy and journaling and meditating I tried everything. That's one of the big things I had to do, is I had to sit in my own silence and say, what really brings you joy?
What did you discover brought you the most joy?
Definitely being with my kids, laughing with friends,
Mm.
um, running in Pacific Spirit with my dog. Uh, then you start to kind of like, I love being on a yoga mat.
Yeah.
I love Shavasana, the
Yeah.
end of yoga, where it's just like it all just kind of settles.
Hmm.
And then I really loved when I thought about what I like to do day to day. I love talking to people and collaborating with people. I really I uncovered my values, and my values are around curiosity and learning, but
Hmm.
sharing that learning,
Yeah.
and then community. And the reason I say community, because it's not the family you choose; it's the family that kind of comes to you. It's that inner circle.
Yeah.
Um, and then I just kind of like kept thinking, is this helping your values? Is this true to your values? And that's when I realized I was doing a lot of stuff that wasn't.
Yeah.
So it was kind of, I was doing things because I thought I had to, or that was the right thing to do, or people needed me to do it. And I just had to kind of, I the opportunity to step away from work gave me that opportunity to then do that more.
Totally.
Yeah.
I have a question for managers.
Yeah.
So, a lot of women in our community, they manage up and they manage down. And so, if what advice would you have to a leader who has someone on their team who you can see those cracks and you can see that these things are happening?
Yeah.
Um, maybe a sabbatical or a break is an option. Maybe it's not. But what advice would you give?
To the leader,
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the biggest pieces of advice to leaders that I'm giving right now is, in order to help people see that it really is a safe space that they can talk to you and come to you, is you have to be vulnerable first.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to, lead by example. You have to be, um, the saying just constantly jumps in my head is like, in order to sit with someone in the dark, you have to have sat in the dark yourself. And it's share those stories.
Yeah,
And that's the advice to the leader.
that's great advice. That's
Yeah.
great advice. So now I'd love to talk about, since the article,
Hmm.
how, um, how has that changed? How has it changed your life, your relationships,
Hmm.
and what does the last 6 months look like for you?
Yeah. So it took me a while to put that article up. That's for sure. Probably 3 months of like, and then not, and then not. So the response was very overwhelming. I was overwhelmingly positive. I was pretty shocked and surprised that people that I hadn't talked to in 10 years kind of reached out to me,
Yeah.
either through comments or direct text messages and DMs. The thing I probably wasn't prepared for is then how many people were willing to tell me, how many people were willing to tell me their story and then ask for advice. And I was like, "Ooh, I don't know what I'm doing there." So that was a bit of a surprise that I wasn't expecting. And then I was like, how can I help people? And I don't want to cause harm, but I want to help. Um, and then it definitely changed my relationships with a lot of people at work, I would say, from the perspective they had no idea. And then a lot of people, again, as I said, wanted to share their stories with me and ask for help, which was amazing. I've now been asked to talk at different internal events mostly. How can we, while we have an amazing benefit program, what are the other things we can do? And I've been asked to like offer my advice and offer my suggestions and helping do that. So My role is definitely is evolving, and we're kind of going to see how that goes. It sounds like you got some construction going on there.
It
Um,
was quiet for a while, but then it came back.
yeah, yeah. So it's, I think in my personal life, I really want to be authentic and real, and um, yeah, lots of things around that. I had conversations with my dad and my mom about things, and that things that I wouldn't normally ever have brought up or felt comfortable with. But I'm like, I gotta talk about these things. You just have to talk about them.
Very much so. And actually leads to my last question. How can we start the conversations in our own workplace about mental health? And obviously, you've had some experience over the last few months. What
Hmm.
advice would you give in terms of sharing stories, resources, etc.?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. As I said before, it really does have to start from the top. Like the executive, the C-suite, the leaders, they need to be truly, truly open to being authentic and real. And you have to feel comfortable with it and do it in your own way. But people, it really is amazing how people will open up. Um, I think having those connections and peer relationships is incredibly important. So offering the opportunity within the workplace to have those peer groups and connections, supporting them. And I think it's the last but not least, definitely not the least, is the benefits programs are incredibly important, but really the education and the training. And it has to be constant and consistent. It can't just be, on one day a year that we talk about it. And then, you know, I'm actually
Can't,
now.
can't just be Bell. Sorry,
Exactly. Like it
Bell.
can't just
No,
be one day a week. Like it has
no.
to be all the time, and it has to be embedded within the culture. And I think we can start to do that by having first education.
Mhm.
There's a number of resources, but I'm actually doing it on Monday. There's a mental health first aid course. So just like
Oh,
the first aid course and CPR one that we've,
yes.
done, they now have one on mental health. So
That's
it's 2
incredible.
days, and they have courses for workplace. And
Yep.
like, it's like find those resources. And I think I don't like mandating things, but it's highly recommended that
Yeah.
everyone that has 5 or more people that they lead takes this course,
Can
because
you share that link as well? We'll post that link.
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And then you start with that core education, and it's the training, and then it's offering the space for people to talk about it.
Yeah.
Uh, and last but not least, like benefits.
Yeah.
Benefits and resources. And I mean, I was kind of blown away. I won't say the actual company, but it's a large credit union that we probably all know, and their benefit on for mental health services, therapists, counselors, it's definitely the highest number I've heard, and it's
Amazing.
double digit that they offer to an individual.
Amazing.
It's
And
incredible.
and also communicating, if you are within a company like that that has benefits like that, being able to communicating it to internal candidates, but also communicating it to external candidates. Because
Yeah.
if there are a lot of women, especially in our community, that are, I call it like the great alignment, realignment, where they're like trying to um, find that company previously might be a big name. Now it's
Mhm.
actually less about the name of the company and more about those offerings. So
Yeah.
if there are women who are struggling with mental health and they are looking for a new job, they may be attracted to a company that has those types of opportunities.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because that's I have a new EA that we hired in the last, I think it's definitely the last 6 months. Um, that was one of the number one reasons she came.
Wow.
to us was that she's like, I was going to be paid more. She had 2 job offers, paid more
Yeah.
here, but
Yeah.
she's like, then I looked at your benefits and particularly the one-on-one mental health, and she goes, that also signaled to me that you guys are paying attention to this and you care.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
even if you don't need it right now,
No,
it's there. And you also
exactly.
know that your fellow employees are supported with that.
Hmm.
So even if you are not necessarily um, someone that may use the benefit, or that the general culture is really accepting and supportive in that area.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this has been a really great discussion. We only just touched the surface on what a very difficult conversation is, and one that I hope we can continue. And I'm going to drop some references and some resources in the chat, including your LinkedIn article.
Thank you.
And I want to just thank you for your vulnerability today and for sharing your story. I hope that there are women who have heard this that needed to hear it. Um, I know, Kari, you're very supportive and open book. So if there is anyone, I'm sure it's okay that I offer that they reach out to you directly,
Absolutely.
and reach out if you want to have a one-on-one, because I think that sometimes talking to somebody who's going through or has gone through something similar is one of the most powerful things you can do.
Yeah,
And just want to thank you for your time.
you're welcome. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks again. All right. Have a great weekend, everyone. I hope that as women, you find some time for yourself this weekend to celebrate you. Got 2 small children, but I'm getting a massage. I hope you can do something for
Excellent.
yourself and to create some really great boundaries over the weekend. Take care. Have a good one. Thank you, Kari.
Bye.